So back in September 2019, I did do a video on gold using Ikeneshi trading strategy where I had clearly mentioned that the initiation candles on the downside that were forming in gold were a part of a retracement cycle happening in an uptrend. And this retracement should be used to accumulate into gold because trend of gold was clearly on the upside. Now, after I did that video, gold did move lower from 1480, 1490 to about 1440. Now, since then, gold has again started moving higher. Now, while gold was retracing and moving lower within a larger upcycle, I was using this opportunity to accumulate ETFs around this level. I also accumulated ETFs around 1480, 1490 and somewhere between 1495 and 1510. So as of this session that I'm recording, gold is currently trading at 1550, and through Ikeneshi candles, I was able to average out my positions as the retracement was happening.
Click on the subscribe button and bell icon to get instantly notified when a new video is uploaded. Thank you for subscribing.
Now, not many traders realize this, but Ikeneshi candles are a wonderful way to ride the trend, and they do help in filtering out news events, global events, and even something like earnings season. So let me now show you how you should be using Ikeneshi trading strategy to analyze the current structure of the market and to use it in your own trading. Now, I've also started doing live episodes when it comes to intraday trading, and currently I've done 2 episodes, so do watch the same in case you have missed these videos. Now, apart from gold, one commodity which I feel will do well is silver. Now, this is a monthly time frame chart, so I'm not expecting immediate movement happening in silver, but momentum on the downside is clearly missing over the past 2 to 3 years. And if silver manages to come out of this range that it has been since the last 3 years between 20 and 14, so let's say if we get a strong breakout above 20, then I feel something like 28 and even 34 can show up in years to come. So in case you trade in some of those markets which gives you the ability to invest in silver, that is in the ETF, you can certainly look into it. So let us first begin by looking at S&P 500 on a weekly time frame chart. Now, there were these 2-3 initiation candles that were visible here, which actually took price further lower from about 2700 to about 2350. Now, since then, that is from 24th December 2018, price has steadily moved higher despite of many concerns emerging in these regions in terms of trade war and other global events. Now, over the past 15 months, if you see, there's not been one initiation candle on the downside that has signaled trend change going ahead. And S&P 500 has consistently moved higher. Even if you switch to something like a daily time frame chart, something very similar is visible. There was this one initiation candle visible here, but no follow-up, and price again started moving higher. If you look at a period of October 2019, again, there were a couple of initiation candles here, but there was no confirmation on the downside. You take a look at these 2 initiation candles here. There was again no confirmation on the downside. Price started moving sideways and then headed higher. So even if with the current global development that is happening in terms of news flow, if we do see some knee-jerk reaction happening even towards 3140, 3120, we need to assess how many initiation candles we do get on the downside and whether those candles get confirmed or not. In case there is no confirmation after some bit of down move, use that opportunity to go long in the market. Now, we have seen this repeatedly happening in S&P 500, and like we saw in gold, such retracements should be used to buy into the market and not get scared with what goes on the screen, that is with respect to recent price movement clubbed in with news flow. So German DAX is again one index that I track closely in my global market index list. And when I look at German DAX through Ikeneshi candles, again, I don't spot anything concerning as of now. Yes, you did have 2 initiation candles on the downside, but there was no follow-up. And since then, we have had some strong initiation candles and price has moved lower. There was some attempt here as well, but like you can see, there's no confirmation and price again did start moving higher. So while there is some global turmoil happening on back of what happened, But even if you look at DAX, uptrend is still in place, and I don't think there is anything yet to worry about. If the situation escalates, then yes, that would start reflecting on the chart. But the beauty of Icon SE candles is that it lets you ignore all the news flow and it lets you focus only in the direction of trend. I mean, even if you were somewhere around this level, that is on 31st October 2019, and you would have determined by Icon SE candles that trend was up, you wouldn't have lost any money in this phase because you would have used the dips to accumulate into DAX. And something similar to what we saw in gold, where I showed you how in September gold was clearly heading higher, and I used all the dips to accumulate positions into gold. Now this chart that you see is of Nifty on a 60-minute time frame. Now certainly there seems to be some bit of selling pressure that is visible, especially with the kind of session we had on Friday. You can spot a couple of initiation candles here, but these are still not that strong. If you change the time frame to something like 30 minutes, you can then spot these two initiation candles on the downside, and then price moved lower. Now such candles were also visible on 31st December and even on 30th December. So you have to carefully choose time frame in case you're trying to infer or draw conclusions about trend heading ahead. So if I now change the time frame back to daily, so take a look at how the chart shapes up. Now there is not even one single initiation candle on the downside that is visible. On the flip side, if you look at these two candles, these are two strong initiation candles. You can also spot a couple of two initiation candles here. And since price moved above 11,500, you've not had even one initiation candle on the downside. So all the news flow about price now moving lower and Nifty testing somewhere close to 11,800 or even lower, it is not reflected yet in terms of Icon SE candles. So let us just check what is going on the weekly time frame. So on weekly time frame, again, I mean, there was a phase here where price was moving lower on back of initiation candles, but price eventually started moving higher. Now there was a time when I was doing market analysis regularly, and during the same point of time where I did analysis of gold with Icon SE, I did tell you about Nifty as well, that structure is not at all looking bearish. Now if you look at the current rally that has happened from 10,800 to about 12,200, there are a couple of strong initiation candles on the upside, but there is no initiation candle yet visible on the downside. Yes, the global situation that has occurred, it can play out in a pretty bad way in days to come, but let price reflect that. As of now, price is firmly heading higher, and any dips should be used to take long exposure in the market. So let us now come to Bank Nifty. So again, this is a 30-minute time frame chart of Bank Nifty, and on this chart, couple of strong initiation candles on the downside are clearly visible, and you have seen price has moved lower since then. But this does not mean that Bank Nifty will continue to slide, especially if you start switching to higher time frames. Now if you go to something like a daily time frame, again you don't see any initiation candle on the downside. In fact, the last initiation candle that came about in Bank Nifty was only in October 2019. So trend is clearly on the upside, and that is where your focus should be when it comes to Nifty or Bank Nifty. So when you look at something like a weekly time frame chart with Icon SE candles on Bank Nifty, again a similar picture emerges what we saw for Nifty. Trend is clearly on the upside, and even in this phase between July and September when Bank Nifty was heading lower, it could not penetrate lower this consolidation phase. And most of the traders, when they are using Icon SE candles, they don't take into consideration previous support and resistance levels. And that is actually extremely important when you're trying to trade on a positional basis or even on a swing trading basis. So what I will do is I'll just mark out support in terms of the previous breakout we have seen in Bank Nifty. Now, as traders, what you need to refer to is that if Bank Nifty starts moving below 31,600 and it starts forming strong initiation candles on the downside on a weekly time frame chart, it is only then that you should start thinking in terms of short selling Bank Nifty. And that has to happen when price retraces back. That is, if price moves lower and it then has a weak retracement, only then you need to consider short selling. So as of now, start using all the opportunities you're getting to accumulate into Bank Nifty. I know it's a bit difficult to do when you're seeing market down 1.5%, 2%, but that is what will make you a good trader, and that is something I do on a consistent basis. So the only thing that currently worries me about our market is the lack of broader market strength. So when I take something like United States, that is US markets, as of now, about 61% stocks are forming a structure of higher high and higher low on a daily time frame chart. In our market, the current broader market strength is somewhere around 20%. That is, only 20% stocks are forming a structure of higher high and higher low. So that is something that makes Nifty and Bank Nifty and even broader market more susceptible to correction when you compare it to something like S&P 500 or even Dow Jones. Now, when it comes to our markets, I would also like to see strong performance from mid-cap index. Now, mid-cap index is an index where most of the retail traders also invest, and this directly has impact on sentiment. So while price is not moving lower these days, I mean, back in September, price was at 5,300 and right now it's somewhere closer to 4,800. But what I see on the charts are these strong initiation candles on the downside in this leg and even in this current leg. Now, when I compare that to up movement that has happened, it has not happened yet on back of strong initiation candles. So this is definitely something that I am looking forward to track on a regular basis. Real recovery in stock market would only happen if mid cap index and something like small cap index start performing well. So this is the CNX small cap index. Again, you see strong initiation candles on the downside and price has moved lower since then. Now, in the current cycle, initiation candles are actually missing on the downside, which is actually a positive sign, but there are no strength candles or initiation candles developing on the upside. So at least I would want to see something like this level being crossed on back of strong initiation candles. And until and unless this happens, I will be skeptical about what is going on in the mid cap space and small cap space. And this is why again and again I go back and refer to S&P 500 chart and charts of Dow Jones, because if correction starts in those markets, then there is no way our market is going to do well, and small cap index and mid cap index would again start moving lower. So I hope you can now see how to use Ike Nishi candles without complicating your charts to analyze overall structure of the market and then to position yourself for the coming months ahead. Now, from our market point of view, there's one more thing that worries me some bit, and that is the overall structure of USD INR. Now, we've seen some strong initiation candles on a weekly time frame chart that is on the upside, and since then price has moved in this particular range. So I've just marked out two levels here. In case you see a fresh breakout happening in USD INR above 72.5, 73, I think then equity markets will start facing the heat. So USD INR is one more data point along with S&P 500 and something like DAX that I'm tracking on a consistent basis in order to determine my positional trade direction when it comes to our markets and some of the global markets that I trade in. So let me just give out a couple of steps when it comes to trading Ike Nishi in terms of trend trading. The first point I want to make is that higher time frame is extremely important. Do not neglect higher time frame, because when it comes to time frame selection, the lower you move in terms of time frame, the more noise you will encounter in terms of overall trend. Therefore, when it comes to analysis of any stock or commodities that I want to trade, I first start with the higher time frame and I then move to lower time frame to identify entry in the market. So higher time frame I use to define the overall trend, and lower time frame I use to enter into that stock or commodity. So if you want to really succeed in trading or take it up as a profession, always remember that analysis of multiple time frames is absolutely crucial. Do not ignore this step, and this is just a skill that you will get better at as you gain more experience and as you practice this more regularly. Now, when it comes to applying Ike Nishi trading strategy on stocks, commodities, and Forex, what I found is that Ike Nishi works extremely well when it comes to commodities and stocks. Now, when it comes to Forex, it is not that Ike Nishi does not work. It is just that you have to experiment with time frame combinations in order to identify trend better. You also need to be careful about a time session that you have to choose. That is whether you need to trade in the UK time session or in the US time session. So that is something that you have to work out, but Aikaneshi overall works really well on stocks, commodities, and Forex. So your first step has to be to identify initiation candle. Now this is step 1. So when it comes to step 2, you then need to see whether these initiation candles are being confirmed by confirmation candles. Now I have done these set of 6 videos that will come up in front of you, and I have explained Aikaneshi in great depth. So do watch all these 6 parts. It is only then that you will start to get a hang of Aikaneshi and you would be able to use this as a standalone trading strategy.